I've been asked a lot over the years whether or not a figure art was good or bad because someone was after it, and hey, apparently I'm some kind of expert. I don't know. But, I have to honestly say, I still don't think there's such a thing as a bad figure art, because they're all very solid, very articulated, and generally well sculpted figures. But I always had to admit that the low tier of figure art was Agito ground form, with only two extra hands, an extra face, and it's a really lacking release, all things considered. So this made me really happy. I was really happy to see that the Renewal, which isn't the proper name, but we're going with it, came out with an Agito. It made me very, very happy to find that out. Now, I keep saying, review the box, because the box is just a piece of cardboard for marketing purposes, but when it's special, go ahead. And I think because this is a brand new style of figure art line, we're going to go ahead and give you a quick look at the box. Very classy picture on the front, no window anymore. Metallic lettering along the sides and top, so that's always nice. And then you get your usual advertising stuff on the back. What's nice is that it is like a high-level box. It properly tapes on the side, lift open. It's very sturdy, very heavy cardboard, very, very durable, multi-layered. You see the shells side, and then the shell for accessories on the bottom. There's a lot, like really, really sturdy. Like this got mailed to me in a bubble mailer, and not a bit of damage to the box. It came through perfectly well. It's quite cool. So that also gets me out from explaining which version of this is, because now you've seen the box. And now we can take a look at the figure proper. Agito ground form. Now, of course, as far as Kamen Rider series go, Agito is my favorite, and I still really, really like the design of the main character. So, of course, he is sculpted extremely well, and in mostly black plastic all the way through. There is so much paint on this guy, getting his look accurate. Pretty sure all the color is handled in paint, aside from a few translucents here and there. Now, I'm going to give you a quick look at the sculpting here up close. It's probably not what I'll use for the thumbnail. I'll probably use the box. But he is looking quite exceptional. It's very much Agito. I like how inline all the armor is. I like the proportions on this guy. Now, here's the thing. It's really hard to take a look at this one and realize, well, it's still figure art Agito. How could it be any different than the original? Well, we kind of need the original here in order to actually figure that out. So let's pop him in, and we will actually take a look at what has changed. Well, for starters, the new one is just a tad bit bigger. Something I've noticed on some of my figure arts, Ultimate Kuga and my Shocker Grunts especially, they're a little bit taller than they used to be, just slightly. You wouldn't notice it on their own, but when they're standing together, big difference. And I can kind of see that here. We can also see the proportions are drastically different between the two, whereas the original is a very, very thin kind of look to him. You get a much more like natural human proportion out of the new Renewal version of Agito. There's also a few quirks to the sculpting of the original I didn't really notice until I got the new one. For instance, he has abs. Like, look, he has abs sculpted into him, like it's an American Power Ranger toy. That is kind of strange. It's almost as if the sculpt followed like the musculature and not actually what the suit actually looked like, Kind of strange in that. You also note, here, I'll show you like big differences. We can bring this in. Like, take a look at the sculpting on the chest, where you do have a much more accurate design on the Renewal. Look at that center crystal piece, where the Renewal version now has fully sculpted detail in the center. Looking extremely good. That's very intricate detail. It's just flat black over here. You can also see it in the head, where all the fangs, those crests, the little the gold that goes through the mouth plate, and the ridges on the mouth plate themselves also much more pronounced, much more standout. Very, very nice. How about the difference in? Oh no, I will say, like, the eye lens is a little bit less noticeable on the Renewal. It's a little bit more subtle, but there's a lot more of those little bug eyes going on. So that I kind of enjoy. So you can actually see where the detailing is a lot more in line with what the actual suit looked like. That goes down to just like the plastic itself, whereas this is much shinier, much glossier. You got a matte finish to the Renewal version, which matches the cloth a little bit better. There's other little details as well, like the cuffs being a little bit smaller around the ankles on the original. The little things like some of the sculpting on the feet, for instance. It's a little less obvious that there's a hinge there. Lots of little details. I think what stands out the most, aside from all those clear little details, two things really. The number one is the shoulder guards, which are now much more accurate to the show. They actually go in line with the armor, so they look like one solid piece when it's standing still. The other one is the actual Agito belt itself, and I'll try to get the arms up to give you a really good look at them. First, we take a look at him. He's got a translucent center to it, but nothing like again blacked out along the sides, and then the buttons on the sides are completely done up in silver. Not entirely accurate. Whereas we get to this one, the belt is done up in translucent plastic. You can see a lot of the inner workings, a lot of the inner details. The sculpting is much sharper on this one, much better painted. The side of the belt is now fully detail painted rather than just kind of splotched in there like it is on the original. And then, yeah, on the side, you have, again, fully sculpted detail under translucent plastic. Far, far better job. Like, even on the back, like, even the back side of the figures are a little bit better. You can see that little triangle of black on the back, which is accurate. You can see the lines are smoother rather than just a little triangle shape. And he doesn't have a trademark tramp stamp. That's a much, much better improvement. So you can see, like, all around, there is a lot of new stuff going on, a lot of changes to the sculpting. I'm quite happy to see that, but the engineering is different as well, and there we don't need to see the original anymore. We can focus on the new. I do like the more accurate details. The gold's a little bit more pale than your standard Bandai gold, which is on the original Agito. Again, more show accurate, so not a complaint. Let's take a look at how the articulation on this thing came out. So we've got ball joints at the base and ball joints at the top of the neck, so full range of motion. Always good to see. The shoulders themselves have plenty of range as well. You've got a universal kind of joint there in the torso, which kind of ball joints around. It's got plenty of motion in there. The guards themselves are on ball joints, and they can be popped off. So, like, if your pose gets a little bit too extreme, you know, nothing's going to get damaged. Arm does get raised to a very natural level. Plenty of range in there, and it still kind of looks a little bit more natural to how it would move in the show, which is good. Bicep rotation, double elbow joint, love seeing that. Wrist on a hinge as well as having a ball joint to it, so tons of range in the wrist itself. And of course, the hinge itself also rotates in the wrist. Lots of little touches of motion. You can see how you can get the shoulder guard right back into position like that. Ball joints here in the hips, in the waist, in both the upper torso and the lower. Love that range. Plenty of motion side to side. I like being able to like fully extend it, like arches back like that, and no gaps show. That doesn't quite hold true on the back, but you're not really going to look too closely at the back when he's doing a pose like that. Okay, what do we got? The legs. The legs are the big thing because for years Figuarts had that like extending hip thing that allowed like a really long range of posing. Here, not so much. There's a hinge joint. It's more of a universal. It's shaped to be a little bit more of a natural shape. So you've got all the same usual cuts, but the motion's a little bit different. That's about as far out as that gets, which again is pretty much standard human, so you're not going to get, you know, a whole lot of crazy poses out of it, you know, but what are humans actually capable of doing? This thing is pretty much capable of doing. So, well, it does seem a little bit more restrictive than the old Figuarts. It looks a lot cleaner than having this big stem holding the leg on. Thigh rotation doesn't rotate all the way around, but again, it's to human limits. Knees, double jointed. Love seeing that. Then we get down to the ankles where you get, see, here you get a hair that I had to get rid of. You have a hinge going back and forth. You have an ankle rocker going this way. You have full rotation, and you have toes. All very well done. Oh, I'll show you my favorite part of a figure art. Even the underside of the feet are sculpted. Everything is accounted for on these types of figures. So yeah, as should be no shock, incredible level of articulation to a figure art. It's got everything I could want out of posability and articulation. But that leaves us with accessory count. So how did we do now? Well, I will tell you that like the original, the head is swappable now, where the original was just like you pop the face off on some pretty dodgy little pins, little tiny pegs. Here it's a full like head swap, like you're used to on Japanese figures like this. Same level of articulation, but now he does have the furled fins out. Quite nice. I like that they go the full distance and actually create a new head that's easy to swap on and off, rather than creating some little tiny finicky part that could easily get broken in a parts bin. Like it could have been easy just to swap the gold piece off for new horns, but no, they went all the way, which is cool. Now, on the original figure art, all you had were these like open like martial arts hands, and hands for holding things and hands for other poses. That was pretty much relegated to buying the bike. You had to buy the bike just to get Agito's basic assortment of hands for a figure art. That wasn't very cool. So here we do have a full range of hands already available. Aside from the closed fists, you have these wide open splayed hands, which is always a nice thing to have. You also have let's see, we have these hands, which seem like they should be grippable hands. They don't have quite the right shape I would expect out of that, but if he has a bike, or if there is a machine tornado for him, it looks like he can hold on to the handlebars. And then he actually has his signature pose hands, which is kind of like a martial arts style posing going on. See, little hand flexes. And they are pretty much swappable as you would expect. It is quick pop at the wrist, and then a quick pop like so. Yes, I kind of like to grab on both sides and then just kind of gently pull both in order to pop those off, because it's a very thin piece that those balls are attached to, so you really do want to be a little bit careful when handling. But overall, forms up quite nicely. See if I can find some pose I'm happy with. I'm just probably not, because I'm doing this kind of quick. You know what he needs? He needs like a big base underneath him where it has this like fuzzy Agito symbol stretching out like he's about to do his rider kick. That would be kind of cool. So that, my friends, is what a renewal version of a figure art looks like. In this case, Agito ground form. Like my first experience with figure art, I'm kind of blown away by just how much these toys can do. It's been a while since I've actually bought a figure art, and I haven't bought anything from the Renewal line. So I love seeing how much more work went into this version. Not just the more humanoid and more accurate sculpting, it's the level of detail they included. Things I would expect on much higher end figures are worked into here, with all the translucent details and deep down molding that you'd normally get skipped on, even in a figure that used to run like $30 at retail. So this was a really cool upgrade, and big thanks to Silvermoon551 for hooking me up. This was on clearance at his Hastings that was closing down, and I don't have Hastings here in Florida, so this is about the only way I could have taken advantage of such a huge cut on something I otherwise would have skipped, because I don't normally just purchase for upgrades. But hey, if you've got a Hastings in town, go check the import toy section. You might get some really, really good deals. And yeah, I would not complain. I would not complain if I had one here and I could grab the Hibiki or others that came out, because oh my god, these things are actually really, really good, guys.